Welcome, everyone, to the 2014 Primary Candidates Forum. Tonight's debate is being sponsored by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau and hosted by Turtles. My name is Tom Getzinger. I'm the General Manager of KCEHK Radio in New Prague, and I'm serving as moderator for the events this evening. Our candidates for House of Representatives District 55A are Ronald Gray and Jay Whiting, representing the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, and Bob Lunan and Bruce McIntoon, representing the Republican Party. And would you please welcome our candidates this evening? The candidates are arranged in alphabetical order. Each of them will have 5 minutes to make an introductory comment, after which I will ask all the candidates questions. Candidates will each have 1 minute during the question and answer portion to respond to each of the questions. And they are going to be shown 15-second warning card and then a stop card by our timekeeper. And candidates, be wary of those times, if you would please, not only with your opening statements, of course, the questions, but your closing statements as well. Once again, each candidate will now have an opportunity to make up to a 5-minute opening statement, and we're going to begin with Mr. Gray.
Hi, I'd like to thank you all for coming here tonight and taking time out of your day to come check out the government and see what we're all about. I'd also like to thank Turtles for hosting the event. I actually work here, so thanks. My name is Ronald Ryan Gray. I'm 32 years old. The last 10 years I've lived in Shakopee, Minnesota. I'm running for the House District 55A seat for the House of Representatives. I am not an experienced politician. As far as I'm concerned, experienced politicians have let you and I down. I am a citizen who is fed up with the status quo. I am sick of the poor decisions made by career politicians, individuals we have elected to represent us, individuals who believe our tax dollars are best spent on frivolous items such as flower baskets, individuals who use their position of power as a means to gain personal wealth and notoriety. I am not them, and I appreciate your time.
And now, Mr. Lunan.
Good evening. My name is Robert Lunan, Bob Lunan, and I'm running as a Republican for the House seat. And I'm a 53-year-old businessman in town. I've been here for 31 years. I've raised my family of 4 adult children here now with my wife, Denise, who's in attendance this evening. I also want to thank the Chamber for putting this on, and the people who are taking the time, not just here tonight, but to watch the episodes later on to make an informed vote. And that's how good decisions come about, is to make your decision based on the latest information you have. Before I even decided to run, I looked up the word legislature. And the definition of legislature, and I'm going to have to paraphrase, has to do with control or create by voting, by legislating or writing laws. How you vote doesn't make you a legislator. It's that room beforehand where they write the bills. We've got issues, and actually some of the things that were brought up already with on a single bill that have to be voted on by different people. There could be a lot of good components in there and poor components, and you're either compelled to take in the bad because you want to advocate for the good, or take in get rid of the good because you're trying to get rid of the bad. Legislation has to do with communicating and getting along in dialogue. I think there's 4 important areas that the Shakopee area is going to have a relationship to the state of Minnesota in the near future. I think one is transportation. The question during the earlier debate had to do with, what is a big factor in creating jobs? People have to get to and from. Roads, mass transit. We have monies that are going towards the special interest of light rail that could be used much more effectively. In the city of Minneapolis, I was researching up there, and last year they spent $28 million on light rail. The amount of fares that they took in was $10 million. That's $18 million that wasn't available for other transportation issues, whether transit, roadways, or bridges. I also think that in transportation, we have to make sure that the tax dollars that are collected here in Scott County, in Shakopee, stay here for our betterment. Right now we've got fiscal disparity where I think we get back 86 cents on every dollar in taxes that we pay. And we've got to have a strong voice to make sure that our needs are taken care of. Shakopee is in an incredibly strong situation in the next 5, maybe 7 years. And what's going to happen is one of two things. Either we have an adequate voice up in St. Paul and opportunities will be maximized, or we're going to have missed opportunities. Those are the two options. Now, in education, education represents, I think, the biggest facet of the state budget. And we hear the word accountability in education all the time. My plan for accountability is that if we're going to give an entity, a school district, money, they should be able to prioritize those programs based on the #1 function of any educational institute, and that is to teach children to learn. Just by doing that budget, just by doing that exercise, will make it so much easier to solve not the funding problem, but the spending problem, because you just start cleaning up from the bottom up. We talk about health care. We've got MNsure here in Minnesota that has just been a disaster. And I don't have time to point fingers. MNsure, the website is probably got to go, and what it's got to be replaced with is a website that puts the potential for solving the problem of health care. And by the way, the problem of health care is the cost of health care. That's the problem. Not who's paying for your premium, or who's paying for mine, or whose premium I'm paying for. It's the overall cost. Hand it to the consumer. I can go online right now and I can, within 20 miles of here, know what I can pay to the penny for a gallon of gas. We should be able to do that with healthcare costs, with medications, with medical procedures. There's going to be pushback from the insurance industry. You're going to get pushback from the healthcare industry. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't do it. On taxes, we've got this is where having the ability to communicate is a big deal. In the last bonding bill we had from the state of Minnesota, I think it was a $1.2 billion bill. They have $200 million in there on, I think, what they call projects or cash projects. In that bonding bill, when people start putting their little special interest on there, which is what you alluded to, we've got money in there to redo the Nicollet Mall. We've got money to redo the waters outside some of the theaters that are downtown that don't do any of us any good. Doing priority spending, putting a sunset clause on bills that are out there, on expenditures, is a way to go through and make sure that we just don't keep adding on more and more.
All right, Mr. McIntoon.
Excuse me. Hello, I'd like to thank everybody for making it out tonight. I'm glad you all made it here safely. Hopefully nobody didn't make it here safely. I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting this event together, and all the other candidates for making it. Appreciate the good debate that we're going to have. I'd like to also special thanks to Turtles for hosting the event and this great place that he's got here. I want to thank all of my supporters, especially my wife and my kids, because without them I definitely couldn't do this campaign. Lastly, I'd like, and most importantly, I'd also like to recognize all those who's served our country, whether in the past or currently. So thank you guys all. I wish we could do an applause for you, but we can't. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Norwood, Young America, not too far from here. My dad was a local butcher. Our house, the butcher shop, everything was heated by wood. So you can guess what I did every summer. I cut wood, and I stacked wood, and I moved wood, and I stacked it again. So I learned how to do hard work and everything that's needed by the kids and the family to get things done out on the farm area and in town too, because we were right on the edge of town. So I did the paper out in town, pedaled that little trailer thing that I had on my bike all the way down the street in the middle of winter. So I've done a lot of the hard jobs, so I understand what it means to do the hard work. My dad taught me a lot of things, but most importantly, he taught me to respect others. He taught me that when you have, you give to others as an individual. He didn't say that the government needs to give to everybody. He said you go out and you do the things for your family, for your neighbors, for your friends. Our country is getting to a point where we rely too much on government to take care of us. Somebody else will take care of them. Somebody else is going to get the money. Take the money from that other person. They may have worked really hard and earned it, but let's take it from them and give it to somebody else. That's not what government's supposed to be. So those are some of the things in my background. I'll tell you a little bit more. I like gardening. My garden struggled a little bit this year. A, I haven't had enough time to weed it, and B, the rain didn't work out very well for me, so my corn's only about that big. Anyways, the other thing, I like going out with my family. We like to camp, and I like to go hunting. Those are things, that's who I am. I'm the guy that is like every other guy out there. Some people might try to say, well, this guy is a far-right Republican. I've been running against the inside party, I think since I started. I've had to fight. 4 years ago, I ran in an open seat over in Carver County when I was districted with them. When I was in Carver County, that person had stepped down after he had already announced, he had received the endorsement that year. And so I stepped in because I have my last name. A lot of people know McIntoon because they got grocery stores and butcher shops. Well, I didn't win because I wasn't the guy that had been on the executive board. That's who ended up winning that seat, and he did a great job. I supported him, I door knocked for him, I helped him win that election. 2 years later, I ran again. Also, after not winning the endorsement, I went out, I dropped for that candidate that defeated me, because I believe you got to do what's the right thing for the party. This year I won the endorsement, and I've done the same things I've done for every other candidate. I've continued to go and door knock at everybody's house that I can get to. You can ask my wife, I'm never home, I'm always door knocking. I get home as soon as or as late as I can just to make sure I can read to my kids before they go to bed. But I'm doing this because I care what's most important for the city of Shakopee, not because I care about what's most important for me. If it was about what was most important for me, there's a couple things I wouldn't have done in the past because it wasn't politically beneficial to me. So more about where I'm at, I believe we need to have smaller government. I believe on our transportation is a great thing that we got the 101 bridge river crossing worked out. That's going to benefit so many people, so we don't have to try and all sit on 169 and wait and wait and wait. Now, the next thing that we're going to have to work on, which is a very, very difficult subject, and I know a lot of people have already been working on it, is the 41 crossing. It's not an easy subject, but we've got to do it. More about myself, I'm a contractor. I've had my contractor business out of Shakopee for 11 years. I've been working in the homes of many of the residents of this area, along with across the river, and the whole time I've had my business, I've been in their homes and seeing really difficult situations that there's not an answer in a book for. So I have to be creative, come up with things to fix problems, not just say the window's leaking, not just fix that window that leaked. I have to find out the reason why it leaked and fix the whole thing. And those are the things I'll take down to the Capitol. Thank you.
Candidate Whiting.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for moderating today, and thank the Chamber for putting on this event. I also like to thank my wife, who couldn't make it tonight, but she puts up with me as I'm out door knocking as much as Bruce, or at least trying to. But as I said, my name's Jay Whiting, and I am a city councilman right now. I'm a liaison to the Public Utilities Commission and liaison to the Shakopee Diversity Alliance. I'm also the chair of SCALE, which you heard about in the previous debate. SCALE is a group that's trying to create efficiencies in government, and that's something I'd like to take to St. Paul and try and get the rest of government to work on the efficiencies that we're doing. To tell you a little bit about myself, I've been in the printing industry for 30 years. I started out on the night shift in Chanhassen working. I worked my way up to the second shift and then onto a supervisory role and then onto a management role. And I've been in the management of a printing company for about 15 years now. Some of the other things I do is volunteer work in the community. I've been on boards and commissions, chaired most of them from the County Historical Society to various city boards and commissions. And I've worked 16 years with the Loaves and Fishes organization, which came to Shakopee about 4 years ago and started serving to the needy there. A little more about myself. I was raised by a single mother who worked a split shift to try and help us make ends meet. And when I was a kid, there was no money for little extra things, so if you wanted anything extra, you had to go out and earn it. So I mowed lawns and raked leaves and started working at a restaurant as a dishwasher when I was 14 years old. And then in high school, I got into the printing industry. That hard work ethic that my mother brought to all of us kids is what I want to bring to you guys in St. Paul, is work hard, get things done. You know, we've done a lot of things here in Shakopee and paved the way to start creating a better downtown, and with our Main Street program, with some of the facade loan programs that we're doing to try and enhance business opportunities down here. Through the Scale First Stop Shop, it's creating job opportunities or business opportunities that might want to come into the town to come here and start a business. Those are some of the good things we're working on. We're also even trying to work on that train noise problem that you guys heard, and you'll probably hear again soon, probably when I'm talking. But those are some of the projects, and a lot of these guys have mentioned transportation. Transportation is a big issue because in the next 20 years, we probably have 10 years worth of funding. Now, with 30% of our bridges structurally deficient, we are already known for being the state that bridges fall down on, and I don't want to have that ever happen on my watch. So transportation funding is a key issue. It's a key to business, and it's something that I would tend to will be working hard on in St. Paul. Other issues are education, and the biggest hurdle for education, I think, is the college debt that we saddle with our children when they get out of college. There's some ideas that I have that work on that, from apprenticeship programs for businesses that do collect money from the state. I think they should be paying it back with some apprenticeship programs. Mental health issues is a big concern of mine. That's a big issue we got to work on. So my plan is to work for you guys in Shakopee. Through my relationships with the city and the county and the townships and school boards, I think that's the relationships that I've already built and made that I can help to enhance this town. You know, I don't have to be the expert in the room when I have a courthouse full of experts. I have a city hall full of experts. I got one of the best city engineers sitting right here, and I can ask him questions if I don't know the answer to. And that's what we've had lacking. We have had this disconnect from St. Paul to Shakopee, and that's the connection that that bridge is the one I want to build. So thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for your time.
And thank you. If you could pass the microphone to Mr. Lunan, please. And now we're going to proceed with the question and answer portion. Again, candidates, be mindful of the timekeeper. You'll get a 15-second warning, and then when you see the stop, let's wrap it up, or I'll ask you to wrap it up. So, Mr. Lunan, if you want to choose that first question, you're going to be answering it, and then we'll have Mr. McIntoon, Mr. Whiting, and then we'll pass the microphone back down here to Mr. Gray. I'll repeat the question for each candidate. Minnesota is known for having a complex tax system. How would you make the tax system easier to navigate?
Well, I'm a flat tax advocate. I believe that even on property taxes, someone who lives in a bigger house isn't using the roads any more than someone in a smaller house. I think another thing on our tax system is to some of the special interest, which, by the way, it seems like that's one of the things that gives legislators control or power, is being able to create loopholes or breaks for certain entities. And that's not a left or right problem. That's a left and right problem. And to go through and pay a straight tax on your income tax. Also, I could see diminishing the income tax and increasing the sales tax. We tax the very virtue that we consider American, which is work, which is earning, instead of consuming. I think our capital gains tax needs to be modified also to open up for businesses to do a lot of the business transactions with other business that they would otherwise do, other than some of the tax consequences. I see businesses making decisions about how they're going to run their business based on tax implications. That's a telling thing.
Time is up. Thank you. Pass the microphone to Mr. McIntoon, please. Minnesota is known for having a complex tax system. How would you make the tax system easier to navigate?
usage tax. That way everybody who uses stuff, when they buy stuff, they pay a tax on it. People that make a lot of money are probably going to buy more stuff. They're going to pay more in taxes. People that don't have a lot of money probably aren't going to pay a lot in taxes. The one thing you do with those who are in the lowest tax bracket in that situation, you do have, and that's what we need to do in government, those are the people we are supposed to look out for, is you do have a minimum rate that they have. Basically, you give that to them at the beginning of the year, and so they can use that when they buy things so that they're not unable to afford to go buy bread and food and the things that they need. So that's the type of thing that I would look forward to make sure that we're still looking out for everybody who's less fortunate, and we are still able to get the most tax benefit, the most fair way, if you want to say that word, by having a flat tax.
And Mr. Whiting, I'll repeat the question. Minnesota known for having a complex tax system. How would you make that tax system easier to navigate?
Well, thank you. Nobody wants to pay any more in taxes, and to making that system easier and fairer, I think, is important for everybody. Right here in Scott County, we have Shakopee, we have fairly low taxes. If you look around and take a look at the other surrounding communities, we're pretty good at the taxes. There's always those loopholes that people are trying to create for their special interest businesses in most cases. And those are the things that I would like to try and close those loopholes. I think it's fair and more meaningful to have that fair system where tax loopholes are discontinued and people pay what's fair for everyone. Thank you.
All right, and if we can have the microphone passed all the way back down to this end, I'll wait until he has it in his hand. Mr. Gray, here's the question once again. Minnesota known for having complex tax system. How would you make that system easier to navigate?
I'm not necessarily sure how I would make it easier to navigate. I will say one thing, that if my cigarettes are being taxed to build a multi-million-dollar stadium, there'd better be a smoking section in it.
All right, that's your answer. Very good. If we can pass the microphone to Mr. McIntoon again then, and he'll select a question. He'll be the first to answer, followed by Mr. Whiting, back to Mr. Gray, and then Mr. Lunan will be the last on this particular question. Okay, rather lengthy question, couple in here, couple of questions, so listen closely. If you received your party's endorsement, what do you think were your strengths to receiving the endorsement? If you did not receive your party's endorsement, what should the voters know about why you are challenging the endorsed candidate?
Okay. I did receive my party's endorsement. I believe my strength was the fact that I did take the time to go out and meet everybody that I could. They got to know who I was. They felt they could trust me. I believe that I've showed my effort. I have a track record with the people that selected us. I didn't start out too much earlier than the other candidate in the race because Representative had retired, so we were both on a shorter timeline. I did have a benefit of, I did run 2 years before, so I'm not going to say that some people didn't know me from that, but I did put in the time and the effort along with the door knocking that I believe is required so you can meet the people face to face so they can know who you are as a person. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do as candidates, because it's your seat. It's the people's seat, and I think that's most important to me.
Okay. Pass that to Mr. Whiting, please, and repeat the question again. If you received your party's endorsement, what do you think were the strengths in receiving that endorsement? And if you didn't receive your party's endorsement, what should the voters know about why you are challenging the endorsed candidate?
Thank you. I am the endorsed DFL candidate for the House 55A seat. I went through the process and won the endorsement on the first ballot. I think because of my background, I'm known and trusted as a city councilman and active in the city for so long. Been an active volunteer and active board member. People know me, and I did go through the process, and I think that's the important part. There is a step. We have a caucus system in this state, and whether you like it or not, that's how the system works. And some of us went through that process, and others didn't. And I think that's part of the system, and that's how we do things. And I am the endorsed candidate. So thank you.
Okay, we'll bring the microphone all the way back down here to candidate Gray. Again, repeating the question, if you received your party's endorsement, what do you think your strengths were for receiving that? And if you did not receive your party's endorsement, what should the voters know about why you're challenging the endorsed candidate?
My name's Ronald Ryan Gray, and I am not the endorsed candidate, and my opponent referenced the system that we go through. I do not believe in the system. I think that it's just given us corrupt politicians, people that are in it for their own interests and have forgotten about the citizens of the state of Minnesota.
All right, pass the microphone to candidate Lunan. Again, if you received your party's endorsement, what were your strengths for receiving that? If you didn't receive it, what should voters know about why you're challenging that endorsed candidate?
I am not an endorsed candidate on the Republican side. However, the rules allow for going to a primary, which allows the general populace to vote. I believe the more eyes on a situation, the better the ultimate decision is, and the primary allows the electorate to make that decision. So I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity that our Constitution allows. What the electorate should know about me and do know about me is my involvement and my knowledge of the area. I know the people. We've raised our kids together. We go to church together. I do business with you. I've worked with you on civic groups. We have a relationship already. So I understand the people of Shakopee. I also understand the problems that are actually unique to District 55A, and to go up there and have a strong voice. I've demonstrated as a school board member, I'm willing to ask the hard questions, and I'm willing to sit there until we get an answer one way or the other. I'm fine with making anyone defend their position.
Okay. All right. Time for question 3. We'll pass the microphone down to candidate Whiting. He's going to be selecting the question. Following his response, it'll be candidate Gray, then Mr. Lunan, then Mr. McIntoon. Here's our next question. Got 2 of them here, partner. I'll give you one back.
Give me both.
There you go.
2 for 1.
Of course, I chose the shorter one. Okay, do we have the microphone down to candidate Whiting? Yes. Okay, here's your question. Here's everybody's question. What are your views on MNsure?
Good question. You know, MNsure was honestly a terrible rollout. I think you can boil it down to a bad website. I think with 95% of Minnesotans covered by MNsure, you know, my kids under age 27, if they were still under age 27, would be covered. Pre-existing conditions are now covered. We have led the country, I believe, in the insurance of, you know, providing insurance at a state level. I think because of our state, we have the capabilities in the insurance system and the medical system out here that has made MNsure one of the better systems, the best system, I would say, in the country. So I think it's a good system. I think people are covered, and that's the whole part of the program.
All right, microphone all the way down here to the end. And quite simply, Mr. Gray, what are your views on MNsure?
I'm not really sure about MNsure at all, except I know that I have a good friend of mine whose father needed a liver transplant, and previously he was covered on his wife's plan, and since MNsure went into effect, he was no longer covered, and so now they have to pay thousands of dollars in medical bills.
Okay, and now we have Mr. Lunan with the answer to the question of views on MNsure.
MNsure is a solution looking for a problem. In Minnesota, the aspect of uninsured individuals had nothing to do with medical situations. It had to do with affordability, which still is the problem in healthcare, cost of healthcare. We had Minnesota Comprehensive Health Association that cannot count any pre-existing conditions at all. We had that already. Minnesota already held the ideal model for insurance for medical, and all people had to do is not buy the cigarettes or spend money on something else and go ahead and purchase your health insurance. Now, the problem, they will say, is the affordability. On the MNsure replacement, we should be able to enable the consumers to purchase. If you have to have a surgery, if you have to get a medication, to be able to shop that and bring price back into the market. Healthcare is the one thing you buy, and after you own it, you are told what it's going to cost. Now, you tell me that makes sense.
Mr. McIntoon, views on MNsure.
I agree it's a problem. We had the best health care rates in Minnesota in the whole nation previous to MNsure. Due to MNsure, I believe 120,000 folks were not able to keep the plans that they were on. That's a big number. The people that weren't insured were mostly people that didn't want to be insured. There were a few people, and I'm not saying that it wasn't important, because I've talked to a lot of folks that they didn't have insurance, and the only way they would get their cancer treatment was because of MNsure. I do feel bad for those situations, but I also feel bad for the skyrocketing rates that we're going to be looking at here coming up in this next year. I know my family's rates went through the roof as soon as they heard that that thing was coming. And so they're just going to keep going up. We need to do more things like allowing insurance companies cross state lines with their plans. That'll save a lot of money there. And we need to redo malpractice reform so that doctors don't have to worry about getting sued by everybody and anybody.
Time's up. Next question will be chosen by candidate Gray.
No, you have to pick first. Got her?
Okay. In this case, we'll have just right down the row, candidate Gray answering the question, Mr. Lunan, Mr. McIntoon, and then finally Mr. Whiting. Here's the question. Tell us what it means to you to be, whatever party you are, Democrat or Republican.
I am not a Republican, and I am not a Democrat. I am a concerned citizen who is fed up with Republicans and Democrats.
Mr. Lunan, what does it mean to you to be either a Democrat or a Republican?
I'm a Republican. I found almost all of the values that the Republican Party stands for. I believe that a law-abiding citizen should be able to buy any gun they want. I believe that there is a relationship between the effort you make and the treasures or the amount of happiness you have. I also believe that there are things that government is doing that would be better done through another entity, houses of faith, community civic groups, people closer to the situation. We have all of these decisions being made by people in St. Paul that are affecting people in Shakopee, people in Black Duck, Minnesota, people in Rochester. And it isn't a one-size-fits-all. And it isn't that they're doing anything sinister. It's just not the best way of doing it. I also have with the Republican Party, I match up with their values of smaller government, reduced government. And I think on every, again, expenditure that government has, if it's purported to solve a problem, then it should have a timeline of when it will solve that by, not perpetuate the situation and go on and on. So a sunset provision would allow them to act to keep that bill in place.
Thanks a lot. Okay, Mr. McIntoon, what does it mean to you to be a Democrat or Republican?
I won't tell you what it means to be a Democrat. I'll tell you what it means to me to be a Republican, because I've been one my whole life. I believe that it's we the people. I believe that the Republican Party is the party of those who are less fortunate, because we're going to teach you not to how to give you a fish. We're going to teach you how to fish. We're going to teach you how to build yourself up from whatever situation you are. If you're in a lower income, you're going to be able to build yourself all the way up. You can be one of the top earners in the nation. I myself never went to college for longer than a couple semesters. But I run my own business. I've been successful because I've been part of the Republican Party, and I believe that all the values that we share in our faith, in our families, those are all things that are espoused by the Republican Party, and we're going to reach out to every nation, every creed, and that's the Republican Party. Amen.
And Mr. Whiting, tell us what it means to you to be a Democrat.
Well, thank you. I became a Democrat later. I voted for Ronald Reagan once. I'm sorry I voted for Jesse Ventura too, but you know, we all learned we were going to send that message to Washington. But you know, I became a Democrat basically during the first Gulf War, I decided that that was not the kind of system I wanted to live under, where our country was going to attack another country to go after what I thought was oil reserves. I became a Democrat because of the dignity that it allows people, you know, the different minority groups that are part of it, that are citizens in this country. There's gay, lesbian, transgender people that are not represented. There's people of different faiths that are not represented well by the Republican Party. I think there's people that can't make ends meet, that just don't have that ability, and the church groups try, but definitely can't bridge that gap. So I think
and that is your time. Thank you very much. We'll pass the microphone back to Mr. Lunan. And Lori, you're right on track here. This will be our final question. Mr. Lunan, you will choose that question, and then we'll have our 4 answers before we move into the closing statement portion. And we'll end up with another one of these 2-part questions. It'll be Mr. Lunan, Mr. McIntoon, Mr. Whiting, and finishing up with the answer of Mr. Gray. What do you think is the key to an effective state government? What do you believe is the greatest obstacle to an effective state government?
Well, first of all, I think government can do a lot of good. I think just like in the private sector, you get situations where entities come in, and something is voted on. Again, some program is voted on, and it should be designed to solve a problem. And I do believe that everyone in government is trying to do well. Everyone understands that that single-parent household, that aspiring immigrant, that's a situation that could use some help. The difference between the two parties isn't that. The difference between the two parties is what's the best way of helping them. And with good intentions, people come running in and saying government's going to take care of that. The things that get in the way of good government is the special interest, is the squeaky wheels. That's one of the eye-openers I had when I started running here, is you had people came in and they had what I call deal breakers, that you will go lockstep with us, and some of it can be party level also, which I don't do. I'm an independent thinker. When you elect me, you're going to get an independent thinker, and I'm going to listen to you.
All right. Next. Again, the question, what do you think is the key to an effective state government? What do you believe is the greatest obstacle to an effective state government?
The key to an effective state government is for the legislators to listen to the people. If we don't listen to the people when they're calling our offices and letting us know about what's going on in their lives, government then becomes the biggest obstacle to government. We don't listen to the people. That's one of my #1 things, is to make sure that I'm going to be listening to the people. As a contractor with my business, I spent the last 5 years talking to all of my customers, whatever party they're in, about different policy things and different things that are going on, but not the hot button ones, because nobody ever agrees on those, because they're hot button issues. You're not going to get people to go on your side with it. And we've been able to get a lot of things worked out in the homes of these folks that I were at, and get things done that I can take down and show to people, say, look, these are things that every side agrees on. We can get those done. Those are important things. Those are roads and bridges and the lower taxes. Those are what the people want, and that's what we need to do.
Okay. Mr. Whiting, again, thoughts on key to an effective state government, and what do you believe is the greatest obstacle to that?
Well, I think the keys to an effective government is the process of working through the issue to come up with the best decision. And the biggest obstacle to me is the polarizing party politics. Right now, people either vote left or vote right, vote Republican or Democrat. Now, I think if you take a look at my issues, you'll see that I'm the tolerant one. I have the reasonable decisions, and I think I'm going to vote for the people of Shakopee and the best interests, whether that decision is from the other side of the aisle or not. It's going to be what's best for Shakopee. And I think that's the key to an effective government and an effective legislator. Thank you.
All right, microphone down to the end here. Mr. Gray, again, what do you think the key is to an effective state government? What's the greatest obstacle to an effective state government?
I actually agree with Bruce that the key is that we have to remember who it is we're representing. And I think the biggest obstacle is that most of the people that are in government now have forgotten that they're elected and they're supposed to represent the citizens of Shakopee, the people that are here right now.
All right, if we can pass the microphone to Mr. McIntoon. Our time has run out on the question and answer portion of the evening. If anyone has further questions for the candidates, they can be asked after the debate is done, or they can contact their campaign offices. You can find more about the candidates at the Chamber's website, which is shakopee.org. And now each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statement, and we'll begin with candidate McIntoon.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing us to borrow some of your time and your busy lives. I really want to ask every one of you who will hopefully be voting on my side of the ticket that you go out and you vote for me, the endorsed Republican candidate. I believe I am the best candidate to represent Shakopee as a whole. I believe I can do the best work down at the Capitol. I spent a lot of time getting to know a lot of the other representatives there, so I will be able to effectively work with others. I understand that as a Republican, I won't just be representing the Republicans. So I will be working with people from the other side, but I've already done that for the last 5 years with my customers, starting that dialogue and starting to do that with other candidates. I try to be as honest and open and friendly with everyone that's down there. And when you elect me, I will have my website up, and I will always let you know why I vote on an issue and why I won't. Because I believe that's the most important thing, is that we keep an open communication between our representatives and the people that are representing them. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
And next up is candidate Whiting.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to Turtles and the Chamber Public Policy Group that's put this on tonight. And Tom, you're doing a great job. Thank you. I think you should vote for me because I am the elected official here of this group. I've developed those relationships that I can take to St. Paul and bridge that gap. You know, as a city councilman here, I've worked to repair the breach at the city hall in the budget and in the staff that we've had. I worked to help restore the streets here in Shakopee. I think that's some of the key basic messages of a local city government that I've been involved in. By electing me, I'm going to take my values that I've carried with me here in Shakopee and bring them to St. Paul to help all of you guys as your representative. Thank you for being here tonight.
And next we'll have candidate Gray.
I would also like to thank all of you for being here tonight. I want you to know that I'm a citizen exercising my right to challenge those who wish to suppress the voice of a unified public. I vow to stand against the juggernaut that has become our government. I believe that life is her choice. I believe in your right to believe. I believe in the absolute legalization of marijuana. I believe that if corporations like Shutterfly are given tax abatements, then it makes no sense that our taxes continue to rise. My name is Ronald Ryan Gray, and I am running for the House District 55A seat in Minnesota House of Representatives. I understand that not everyone will agree with everything I have said. I hope we can all agree that our government has lost its way, that real change starts with you and I. I am not a politician. I am a concerned citizen. I understand that this battle is not one I can hope to win alone. However, I hope to stand next to you when we win the war.
Nope, no applause. Mr. Lunan?
Well, first of all, I want to thank my wife, Denise. It's important to me that you're always proud of me. And that's what I lean back against. The values I'm bringing to Washington are legislative values. I can't tell you how I'm going to vote because the decisions I'm going to be making I'm going to make with the best information, most current information I have at that moment, which is one of the reasons I entered into this race after the caucus precinct. I also feel that the primary is a mechanism that allows the general populace to determine who are going to be the two candidates in the general election. I think this is important. I think this is much more important than a room containing less people than you can get into a bathroom at a Twins game. I think this is how you do it. And you go out, and I want to thank all the candidates for running, because there's a lot to this. There's a lot to this, and I have a respect on that level for all of them. We need someone who's in that front room, not on the floor just voting, but in that front room crafting legislator to keep the garbage off good bills, to do the things that we all agree on, and to bring that back to Shakopee. We're at the precipice of incredible opportunities here. A lot of that has to do with our city council, our leadership here in Shakopee right now, some of those opportunities. And those opportunities stay because we have strong, effective schools, we have roads, and that we have police militia that keeps the crime down. All of those things bring businesses here because they know they can retain top-level employees. And so I hope you consider voting for me. I know many of you, and many of you know who I am and what I am. Thank you for your time.
Now you may applaud. Just have a few words before we stay seated, candidates, please. As we bring this part of tonight's forum to a close, we need to say that the views expressed in tonight's debate are those of the candidates and not those of the Chamber and Visitors Bureau. The Chamber is sponsoring this event as a service to the community and has gone to great lengths to ensure the objectivity of this forum. The Chamber does not endorse any candidates, but seeks to provide you, the citizens and voters of Shakopee, with the information you need to make an informed choice. Thank you to the audience this evening and to our host Turtles. On behalf of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau, thank you, as well as to our candidates. We do appreciate your time. We appreciate your candor and the way that you are serving our community by running for office. You are performing an important service to us all. The primary election, once again, everybody, is Tuesday, the 12th of August. Be sure to get out and vote. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.